It's a real honor to welcome Professor David Shulman, who will deliver the fourth Golden Jubilee lecture. And it's also a privilege that Professor Kunal Chakravarty will be chairing today. So thank you, both of you. I wouldn't take much time, but I would just like to, there are many remarkable things about David, and I'm sure Kunal will mention some of them. But there's one thing that I would like to mention, which is that David is not only a great scholar of Sanskrit, Tamil, and Telugu language and literature, but also an astonishingly brave peace activist and a fighter for the Palestinian cause. And I recommend, for those of you who haven't read this book, I recommend his Dark Hope, which is a clear, honest, courageous, compassionate, moving, and often mournful, deeply disturbing, but unambiguously on the side of the right. I think it's a terrific book, and I thought it was appropriate to mention here because that's not what he's going to talk about. I'm going to read a couple of sentences, well, one paragraph from that book, just to demonstrate that every adjective that I used here is chosen carefully. This is David in his own words. What we are fighting in the South Hebron Hills is pure, rarefied, unadulterated, unreasoning, uncontainable human evil. Nothing but malice drives this campaign to uproot the few thousand cave dwellers with their babies and lambs. They have hurt nobody. They were never a security threat. They led peaceful, if somewhat impoverished lives until the settlers came. Since then, there has been no peace. They are tormented, terrified, incredulous. As am I. What black greed, what unwitting hatred has turned Israeli Jews into torturers of the innocent? The settlers come first, violent and cruel, but above them is a vast, ramified system, official Israel, that sustains them and protects them, that corrupts our minds and our language with vile rationalizations. I rage in my well-appointed kitchen. I'm inflamed, crushed, mad with pain. If the court decides against them, if the army comes to evict them, I will be there beside them. I will try to stop them with my body. Now, and he was beside them. He did stop them with his body, and he was beaten and beaten badly on several occasions. And so I thought it was on behalf of everybody here, I think we need to salute you, David, for your courage. And so it's a double honor that you're here, not only in your capacity as a scholar, but as an exemplary figure who's shown courage and who's followed the path of Gandhian nonviolence in Israel. Thank you.
Friends, it's a pleasure and a privilege to say a few words about Professor David Dean Shulman, Rennie Lang Professor of Humanistic Studies at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and one of the foremost authorities on pre-modern Indian languages, literatures, and histories. His research embraces many fields, most notable among which are history of religion in South India, Indian poetics, and Dravidian linguistics. He has authored or co-authored more than 20 books on various subjects, ranging from temple myths and temple poems to essays on a wide spectrum of the cultural history of South India. Some of us remember the excitement of the publication of Tamil temple myths, sacrifice and divine marriage in South Indian Shaiva tradition in 1980, based primarily on a set of texts which, until then, had been largely ignored by the historians. A number of significant works followed, to name a few: The King and the Clown in South Indian Myth and Poetry, The Hungry God, Hindu Tales of Filicide and Devotion, God Inside Out, Shiva's Game of Dice, Symbols of Substance, Court and State in the Nayaka period Tamil Nadu, The Wisdom of Poets, Studies in Tamil, Telugu and Sanskrit, Textures of Time, Writing History in South India, Shiva in the Forest of Pines, an essay on sorcery and self-knowledge, and the very latest, More Than Real, a history of the imagination in South India. Besides, he has many volumes of translation to his credit, which range from classical Telugu poetry to, in the absence of a more appropriate term, folk Sanskrit poetry, which is almost an oxymoron, and include the delightful account of the adventures of two pleasure seekers in the Kakatiya capital, called A Lover's Guide to Warangal. Professor Shulman is also a published poet in Hebrew and a peace activist. That has been talked about by Rajiv already, but I think there'd be no introduction of David without a mention of this, so I once again do that. His book, entitled Dark Hope, Working for Peace in Israel and Palestine, is considered to be one of the most fascinating and moving accounts of Israeli-Palestinian attempts to alleviate human suffering in that region. Today, Professor Shulman will speak on Truth and Words, a view from the Tamil Ramayana. The scholar and poet A.K. Ramanujan once famously wrote that the Indians don't have to read the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, they simply know these. While that is true, or very nearly true, I'm sure we will soon discover that there are many aspects of the Kamban Ramayana that we didn't really know. Professor Shulman.
Thank you so much.